We have a load of knowledge here for you sitting in front of us, and we're your co-facilitators for the Radical Radiance Wellness Retreat happening at Dancing Shiva Monastery and Healing Center here at Earth Haven Eco Village in April 2025. Swami, thanks for being part of wrangling us to come together to bring an important message into the world, it feels like, and certainly very timely as the unfortunate rates of chronic disease are increasing over and over, and especially affecting our children. So we're hosting a fun 3-day gathering where we're going to be in person and we're going to cleanse together, and we're going to do it right alongside with the participants. And so tell me a little bit about, and the folks who are watching, about what are the elements of a cleanse? What's most important for you, and what maybe can they expect by coming to join us?
Well, the reason that we're having to do this in the first place, the cleanse, is because we have been susceptible to and vulnerable to the toxic elements in our environment, in food and water and air and etc. So the first part of a detox is to quit putting in toxic stuff.
Number one.
Blow the whistle, and now no toxic stuff going in for 3 or 4 days. And believe it or not, that's a short period of time, but you can feel the difference. So the first element is really don't put anything harmful into your body for a period of time.
Right.
Maybe indefinitely. I mean, why would we put anything toxic into our bodies?
Good point.
So that's the first step. Then there is the matter of understanding. So explanations, education, finding out more about what are the toxic things that are in my environment. There's a field now called environmental medicine.
Yes.
Long before that, there was a field called naturopathy, which there still is.
I know something about that.
That's exactly right. Which is why you're the person that can speak to this most directly. But don't put in toxic stuff, and understand where the toxic stuff is coming from, and
right.
Then what can we do to promote the removal of toxic substances from our body? And there are many, many tools for that go back probably as far as human civilization. People would come to take the waters, or they would come to sit in the hot springs, or they would come, they would come for the cure,
right,
and clean out their bodies. And
let me pause you for a moment. And I've heard that today's a typical woman leaves her home with about 200 chemicals on her skin just from her daily beauty routine. That's, personal products like fragrances and chemicals in our bath products, shampoos and fragrances and creams and things. 200 chemicals before you've even left the door.
Yeah, and see, this is the kind of information that people need because they don't have it.
Yikes.
And they are watching advertisements that advise them in the opposite direction.
Right.
So we really need to know that the things we're smearing on our bodies aren't necessarily helpful.
That's right. Right. Tell me about more of the techniques for, so you're clear we need to stop inputting chemicals, and we're going to talk about where they come from and what are the sources so people can be aware and have a choice and be empowered to stop the input where we can, at least, because some areas we don't have so much control.
Yeah.
Maybe in the air per se, that's kind of outside of our range, but we have a lot that is within our control. And that's what we're going to empower and educate about.
Right.
So what about inputting? What do we want to input in order to help the release of the...
Well, we want to put in to our bodies things that will absorb toxic elements and carry them out through the normal routes of excretion. And that's where we need to understand, well, what do the kidneys do? What does the liver do? What does the large intestine do? What does the skin do? Where the routes for excretion and ridding our bodies, so we can support them and support that process.
Right. And
so that's an educational thing, that's an experiential thing.
Right.
So
we're going to experience some of the class. This program is built with a lot of experience in it. It's not going to be a lot of didactic talking. There will be plenty of that, but a lot of experiential things like pranayama breathing, bringing in that fresh oxygen, experiencing yoga and therefore movement, classes like doing dry skin brushing for lymphatic movement. We'll learn what the lymphatic system does. And then we'll get in the sauna and do a sweat and maybe even get a little bit in a cold creek to do some changing of the blood, some vasodilation and vasoconstriction movement there. And then the best part is the food, I think. Let's talk about the food. What will we be eating?
Yeah. And that's where I really do turn to the cultures that have developed dietary practices that promote health.
Right.
And the ancient cultures like the Indian, the Chinese, the people that have been at it for a long, long, long time, and that where the seasonings, what we think is entertaining the taste buds, is actually a medicinal that is not harmful and that is promoting the excretion of toxic substances.
Do you have an example of one of those? What's your superstar favorite seasoning or spice for this?
You know what's the favorite of the day? Turmeric.
Turmeric.
Yeah.
Is that yellow one that leaves our fingers full of yellow orange loveliness?
It stains your clothes.
It brings the sunshine, I call it.
Yeah, but that everybody knows about turmeric now.
Right.
20 years ago they didn't.
Right.
So something has changed, and that kind of change can happen.
Right.
And that's very encouraging.
And that's what we're trying to promote more of, so more people can realize that they can be empowered to take care of their health and prevent disease instead of waiting to get sick and then relying on a system that's already overstressed and burdened and quite frankly kind of broken. Our health care is not really health care. It feels more like sick care.
Yes.
It's not so much health care, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so when you mentioned things to carry out, would that be like fiber in a high plant type of diet?
Yes. And there's plenty of research to back that up. You know, that the a high fiber diet, which means a plant food diet, will remove toxic stuff from your body. And that the difference between high fiber and low fiber is dramatic.
Right. And we'll have the privilege of eating lots of locally grown fruits and vegetables in this cleanse. We will be, of course, eating a vegetarian, very low allergen, anti-inflammatory type of a diet. And there will be, our snacks will be whole fiber juices, which means that we're going to be using a high-powered blender to actually break the fruits and vegetables into little pieces that will maintain the fiber in the drink. And so, you know, some people have seen these juicers that sort of kick the fiber off and then you're left with just the juice. We're going to keep the fiber with it. So that's our little scouring pad internally, is to do what your teacher said, to cleanse from the inside.
Right.
Yeah, and so we're going to be tasting things in combinations like blueberry and beets blended together, and then we'll taste maybe persimmons and orange with ginger in another type of beverage. And I think people are going to be having their taste buds explode and inspired to go home and make all types of other creations.
Yeah, it's once you get a taste of it, literally and figuratively,
Yeah.
then you'll want more,
Right.
and you'll weave it into your life, and then you don't have to worry.
Right.
You don't have to worry.
So what about folks who have never done this before and they're maybe timid about approaching a cleanse? What's different about this cleanse that might help somebody who's a total newbie to approach this issue and then leave feeling confident that they can do this at home for themselves?
Well, I think the very process of doing it yourself.
With a supported group, right?
Yeah.
With others.
Yeah.
So we have training wheels on at this
the
point.
mystique out of it.
Yes.
It's like, oh, yeah, I did it. I can do it because I did it at the workshop.
Right.
And I know I have the feeling for how to do it. It's, what do you call it? Kind of learning.
Like experiential learning?
Yes.
Yeah. With a supported environment, and you and I will be right alongside all the folks.
Yeah.
Cleansing with everyone and making, if there needs to be support, we can, whatever needs to happen in the moment can happen as well. And so it's that way of being together with a team of others who motivate and lifts us and also can support and listen and catch our stories.
Yeah, it's been a missing part of our culture, especially in recent years.
The hope here, though, is to really introduce this as a 3-day program, to have people get comfortable and oriented enough to really sink into returning to see us again, maybe in future months, to do a longer 5-7 day version of this same thing. Because typically, I'd love to know what you do. Typically, I cleanse for about 30 days, twice a year or so. And I think nowadays, with the environment so toxic, we need to be doing things on a daily basis to get the exposures out, because we are exposed every day. So can you tell us, how do you bring cleansing into your daily life?
Well, my teacher used to say there are 2 ways of cleaning. One is you can scrub and rinse, or you can, what you put in to the vessel that you're cleaning will, if it is itself clean, will gradually remove what needs to come out. And so that's where the high fiber diet comes in, and that's where organic food comes in, because it hasn't had toxic chemicals added to it.
Right.
And therefore it will be constantly cleaning. And that's the best way, because it's not this jolt back and forth. But if you haven't done that most of your life, you will probably want to start with a real cleanse, get as much out as possible, and then maintain that state of cleanliness through the kind of food you eat and the kinds of food you don't eat.
Right. Do you mind if I ask how old you are?
Yes, if I can remember. 83. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it's you stop counting at some point. I forget too how old I am, because there's like these landmark ages, and it's like I'm 50 now, or I'm 40, or but then the in between stuff kind of gets lost.
Right.
And so 83, and certainly curious, along with your healthy diet, how else do you maintain your health and your vitality?
Exercise.
Yes, exercise, yeah.
Walking. A lot of this I learned from my mother and my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my mother would walk a mile a day, even when she was in her 90s.
Wow.
And it wasn't a question of whether, it was just when during the day she could get out and do it. She never failed. And, and, you know, when she would, if she overate the next day, she would fast. And, you know, people in her age group were having this thing done where they wired so you couldn't eat.
Oh. On purpose?
Yeah.
So like wire your mouth shut type thing.
Yes.
Okay.
And one of my cousins laughed and said, "Well, Aunt Martha's the only one who doesn't need to do that because she knows how to shut her mouth when she should."
Right.
And so, you know, I watched them because I was around them a lot.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that makes sense.
Model this lifestyle of daily movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
so we'll be doing daily yoga every morning. We'll have about 45-minute practice of gentle movements, followed by maybe a 15-minute sit in a meditative state once we've done through some asanas. And so we're going to hopefully move the body, move the blood, move the lymph that way.
Yeah.
But then also remove some excess thoughts by falling into a bit of a meditative state. And so I know that meditation is a big part of your life and part of your wellness, and that's gotten you to this ripe age. Tell us a little bit about your practice and what you do, and maybe how you think it's helpful for you.
Well, first thing in the morning is a bit of yoga, depending on what needs attention, and then a quiet time meditation with some breath work, sometimes, not always, and then a simple, healthy breakfast, and then being outdoors as much as possible.
So you live in a really pristine mountain environment with no Wi-Fi, very little cellular data, I would imagine, is arriving on the mountain at Dancing Shiva.
Right.
And so this is another level of cleanse that's going to be experienced by just arriving into Earth Haven and Dancing Shiva Monastery Healing Center. The environment, there's going to be an environmental cleansing aspect to this that people experience right away.
Yeah.
And if we didn't do anything else, that would be a felt experience of getting a distance from that exposure of some of that toxicity. And so you're able to be in nature and be in a more meditative state because there's not so many things penetrating and coming at you, that electromagnetic radiation.
Yeah, I think there was a study that showed that if you just ate organic food and didn't do anything else, that something like 80% of the toxic substances in your body would be gotten rid of in 5 days or something.
Wow.
It was a very short period of time.
Well, that's hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah. So people will be here in this environment, and so you know, if you are attuned to what's going on in your body, which is one of the major accomplishments of yoga, is to bring awareness to what's happening in your body, because most of us have been trained not to be aware, to be aware of what's going on out there, but not to be aware of what's going on in here. So it's hard to collect the data from your experiments if you don't pay attention to what's happening inside yourself. But if you do develop that habit, it's kind of a self-correcting process that goes on all the time. You know, like, well, why am I feeling headachy? Well, what did I eat for lunch? Oh yeah, okay. Well, that makes sense.
Right.
And then what happens is the next time that particular food comes around, you look at it and you don't think, oh, that looks delicious. You remember the feeling of the headache and da 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 da, and you go, oh no, no, thank you.
Right.
So this is how we were designed to function.
Right. Thank you for the reminder of that. Yeah. And this element of being aware and checking in with yourself is very important and is going to be infused in the program flow of the day. And so usually sometime in the afternoon or in the evening, or even after an experiential class, we will have time to talk to each other about our experiences, what it brought up, what we felt. And so each participant will have a chance to be incorporating what's in their body and remembering that and sharing it back with the group. And so then we can all have a greater expanse of experiences because we're experiencing what others experience. And through sharing that I think it's going to be profoundly healing and different from what people are doing at home by maybe buying a packet of fiber and taking some pills and trying to fit that cleanse in during their daily life and still tending to work and tending to the house and all the things. And so this is an opportunity to check out a little bit, to unplug from the daily grind, and plug into nature, ground yourself in a clean environment, hang out with some really cool people and others who we haven't even met yet. We're expecting maybe a group or hoping a group of about 12 to 15 people. So it'll feel small enough so that it'll be intimate, but big enough to have a diversity of experience. And what are you looking forward to about this Radical Radiance Retreat? Anything in particular that you're looking forward to or excited about for it?
Well, I'm sure I will learn some things. The last one we did, sort of the dry run, you taught me to take some water with salt in it once a day as a way of maintaining hydration. Yeah, and I've been doing that, and that is really helpful. So one of the things I'm looking forward to is what will I learn that can further my care of my health and my body, because as you get older, you have to be a little smarter about health, especially living in the world that we live in.
And that age is now younger and younger.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's so much more chronic illness in our children nowadays than there ever was before.
Yeah.
And the rates of neurological illness and things like Parkinson's and autism and Alzheimer's and this just sort of cognitive decline is raging.
Yes.
And so I think our nervous system is the most susceptible to the environmental toxins and is showing us this overload and overwhelm. And so the age where we need to take care of ourselves is when we're born, I think. Unfortunately, we don't have much of a wiggle room at all to just be bathed in toxins. That never makes sense for our biology.
Right.
Yeah. Well, anything else you want to share with us today? Any other messages or wisdom you want to impart before we go today?
No, I think it's probably for a lot of people the unknown territory of detox is a little bit intimidating.
Right.
But stepping into it is probably the best thing you'll ever do for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
the feeling you will have through it and after it is certainly deeply compassionate for this biology that we were given to take care of this vessel. It's
Yeah.
a great investment in our future.
Yeah.
Most people will feel so much better and uplifted after even just 3 days of what we were mentioning, you know, pure food, pure water, pure air, good friendship, good rest, and some movement mixed in there. The other thing is that taking home key elements that you can use at home every day or as much as you want. So it's not just something that you can have to do here. It's going to be something that you definitely taking home a toolkit to repeat this
Mhm.
and get creative with your own blends and practices.
Right.
Yeah, I certainly want to make sure that people know that this is going to be an easy, as easeful as possible and user friendly, we should say. It's going to be mildly restrictive in your diet for sure, but we will not be hungry. I think we're going to feel fuller than we've felt in our previous dietary habits because of so much fiber and healthy juices and hydration. Our cells will be full, our bellies will be full, so there's no starvation, and the point isn't to feel sick either. It's to really go slow and gentle so that we just feel more and more degrees of wellness. And so I'm so glad that you're going to be a partner in this journey, and folks are going to be very blessed to be in your wisdom, and I'm sure that there's going to be many teaching opportunities in and around all of the modalities that we have planned for the weekend. Healing is going to show up and wisdom is going to show up in many different ways all throughout the weekend.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Let's cleanse together. Thank you.
Okay.